Jacob Callahan's hands hadn't stopped shaking since he'd lifted that baby from the frozen hay. 12 years of silence. 12 years of telling himself he'd never hold another child. Now here she was, blue-lipped, barely breathing, wrapped in a blood-stained blanket, with a note that read, "Please love her. I'm dying, and she has no one." His dead wife's rocking chair sat empty by the fire. His son's grave lay frozen on the hill. And this baby was dying in his arms. Before we continue, if stories of second chances and healing touch your heart, please subscribe and follow this journey to the end. Comment below with the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. Wyoming Territory, December 25, 1887. The baby stopped breathing twice before Jacob got her inside. "No," he said, his voice cracking. "No, you don't get to die. Not here, not tonight." He pressed his rough palm against her tiny chest, feeling for movement. Nothing, just cold skin and silence. Jacob Callahan had buried his wife Sarah 12 years ago, buried his 3-year-old son William beside her. He'd stood at those graves and promised God he'd never love anything again, and God had kept his end of the bargain by making sure nothing came close. The baby's chest rose, fell, rose again. "That's it," Jacob whispered. "That's it, come on." He stripped off his coat and wrapped her in it, pressing her against his chest. His heart hammered so hard he thought she might feel it. Maybe that was the point. Maybe she needed to feel something alive. The note had fallen from her blanket when he'd lifted her. He could still see the words burned into his memory. "Please love her. I'm dying and she has no one. Her name is Lily. The birthmark on her shoulder is a crescent moon. Her father had the same. He's dead now. Everyone who could have loved her is dead. Please, please. I know what they say about you. I know they call you cursed. But I watched you save that calf last spring when everyone said it was hopeless. You didn't give up. Please don't give up on her." The handwriting had been shaky, desperate. Some words smeared with what looked like tears or blood. Jacob hadn't saved that calf because he was kind. He'd saved it because he couldn't stand watching something die when he had the power to stop it. That was before he'd understood what saving things cost him. The fire crackled, throwing shadows across the cabin walls. Jacob had built this place for Sarah 16 years ago. Every log, every board, every nail he'd driven them with his own hands while she'd laughed and told him their children would run through these rooms. 1 child, 3 years, then nothing. The baby Lily stirred against his chest. Her color was better now, pink, replacing that terrifying blue. She made a sound, not quite a cry, more like a question. "I don't know," Jacob told her. "I don't know what to do with you." She blinked up at him. Her eyes were dark, almost black in the firelight. William's eyes had been blue like Sarah's. These eyes belonged to someone else entirely. "Your mama's gone," he said quietly. "Whoever she was. However she found this place. She's gone. And she left you with the worst possible man in Wyoming." Lily's hand found his finger, gripped it with surprising strength. "Stop that," Jacob said. "Stop looking at me like I'm gonna save you. I don't save things anymore." But he didn't pull his hand away. The knock came at dawn. Jacob had been awake all night walking circles with Lily, when she fussed feeding her warm milk from a cloth, when she cried watching her sleep in the drawer he'd lined with his last clean shirt. He knew who was at the door before he opened it. "Sheriff," he said. Nathaniel Cole stood on the porch snow, dusting his shoulders, his weathered face carved with concern. They'd fought together in the war, watched friends die together. Nate was the only person in this territory who still looked Jacob in the eye. "Jake." Nate's gaze dropped to the bundle in Jacob's arms. "That what I think it is?" "Depends on what you think it is." "Old Henderson from the mill saw you riding in last night. Said you were carrying something. Something small." Nate's jaw tightened. Said there was blood on your saddle. Wasn't my blood. I know that. Nate stepped closer, his voice dropping. Jake, what happened? Jacob moved aside, letting him in. The cabin felt smaller, with another person in it. It had been years since anyone but him had crossed this threshold. Found her in the barn last night, Jacob said. Christmas Eve. Someone left her in the manger wrapped in a blanket. There was a note. He handed it over. Nate read it slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to something heavier. Dying, he murmured. She said she was dying. Blood on the blanket. Birth blood, I reckon, mixed with something else. Whoever she was, she didn't make it far after leaving this baby here. You look for her. Soon as I got the child warm. Jacob's voice was flat. Followed the tracks until they disappeared into the creek bed. Snow covered the rest. If there's a body out there, we won't find it until spring thaw. Nate handed back the note. Jake, you know what this means. Means someone's dead and left me with a problem. Means there's an abandoned baby, and the territory's got laws about that. Nate's eyes were sympathetic but firm. Orphanage in Helena. They take in foundlings. It's the proper thing. Jacob looked down at Lily. She was sleeping now, her tiny face peaceful, unaware that her future was being decided by two men who barely knew what to do with themselves, let alone an infant. Helena's 200 miles in good weather, Jacob said. This ain't good weather. Spring then, when the pass is clear. You asking me to keep her until spring? Nate was quiet for a long moment. I'm asking you what you want to do. What I want doesn't matter. Hell, it doesn't. Nate stepped closer. Jake, I've known you 23 years. I watched you bury your family. I watched you shut down, shut everyone out, turn into a ghost living in a dead man's house. And I let you because I figured you'd earned the right to grieve however you needed. This isn't about me. Everything's about you. That woman, whoever she was, she chose your barn, your manger. She could have left this baby anywhere. Church steps, Doc Morrison's clinic, the boarding house in town. But she didn't. She left her with you. Jacob's grip tightened on Lily. Because she was desperate, because she was dying, and this was the closest shelter. Read the note again. She knew who you were, knew what they called you, chose you anyway. Nate's voice softened. Maybe that means something. It means she made a mistake. Maybe. Nate pulled his gloves on, preparing to leave. Or maybe she saw something the rest of this town forgot how to see. The next 3 days were the longest of Jacob's life. Lily woke every 2 hours. She cried when she was hungry, cried when she was wet, cried when she was too hot or too cold, or just because she needed to feel arms around her. Jacob learned her sounds by trial and error. Sharp cry meant hunger, whimper meant discomfort, wail meant hold me. He learned to mix milk thin enough for her to swallow, learned to change the cloth diapers without sticking himself with pins, learned to walk the cabin floor at 3 a.m, humming songs he'd forgotten he knew. On the third night, she smiled at him. Not gas, not accident. A real smile, her dark eyes crinkling her whole face, lighting up like sunrise. Don't, Jacob told her. Don't do that. She smiled wider. You don't know what you're asking for. His voice cracked. You don't know who I am. What happens to people who get close to me? Lily reached for his face. Her tiny fingers brushed his scarred cheek, the scar he'd earned at Antietam, the one Sarah used to trace with gentle fingers before she'd kiss him. I can't, Jacob whispered. I can't love you. I've got nothing left. But he held her anyway. Held her until she fell asleep against his shoulder, her breath warm on his neck, her trust absolute. In that moment, something cracked inside him. Something he'd thought was permanently frozen. Word spread fast in small towns. By the 4th day, half of Oak Ridge knew about Jacob Callahan and the foundling baby. Opinions varied, none of them good. "It ain't natural," he heard someone say outside the general store when he rode in for supplies. "Man like that alone with a baby girl. Something wrong about it." Heard his wife and son died of fever. Some say he brought it home from the war. Cursed. That's what my grandmother called men like him. Death follows them. Jacob kept walking. He'd heard it all before. Clara Morrison was sweeping the porch of her boarding house when he passed. She was the widow Doc Morrison had left behind 5 years ago, young for a widow, pretty in a faded way with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Callahan." He touched his hat. "Ma'am?" "I hear you've got a situation." "Reckon that's one word for it." Clara set down her broom and stepped closer. Her voice dropped, meant only for him. "Babies need things, Mr. Callahan. Proper milk, clean cloths, someone who knows what they're doing. You offering to help? I'm offering to not let you kill that child through ignorance." She crossed her arms. "Bring her by tomorrow. I'll show you what you're doing wrong." "How do you know I'm doing anything wrong?" "Because you're a man, Mr. Callahan, and men always do it wrong until someone shows them right." Despite himself, Jacob almost smiled. "Tomorrow, then." Clara's boarding house smelled like bread and lye soap. Jacob stood awkwardly in her kitchen while she examined Lily with practiced hands. "She's healthy," Clara said finally. "Whoever birthed her knew what she was doing at least until the end. No infection, no sickness. You've been keeping her warm enough." But you're feeding her wrong. Milk's too rich, she needs it cut with water or she'll get sick. And these cloths?" She held up one of his makeshift diapers. "These are rough enough to scrape skin off. I've got proper ones you can have." "I'll pay you." "You'll do no such thing." Clara's voice sharpened. "This isn't charity, Mr. Callahan. This is basic human decency, something this town seems to have forgotten where you're concerned." Jacob looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time. She was younger than he'd thought. 35, maybe. Her hair was dark brown with threads of early gray, her face lined but strong. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Clara didn't answer immediately. She was watching Lily, something soft in her expression. "Because I know what it's like to be alone," she said finally. "And I know what it's like to have the whole town decide who you are before you've had a chance to show them." "What did they decide about you?" "That I must have done something wrong for my husband to die. That a woman without children must be barren or worse, unwilling. That I'm too proud to remarry, too cold to want comfort." She met his eyes. "None of it's true. But truth doesn't matter much when people have already made up their minds." Jacob understood that better than she knew. "Come back in 3 days." Clara said, all business again. "I'll show you how to bathe her properly, and bring her here if she develops a fever or a rash. Don't wait until it's bad." "Yes, ma'am." At the door, she stopped him. "Mr. Callahan, Jake, what they say about you, the curse, the death, all of it, you know it isn't true." "Do I?" "You should." Her voice was quiet but firm. "A cursed man wouldn't have picked up that baby. Wouldn't have spent 4 nights keeping her alive. Wouldn't be standing here scared out of his mind asking a stranger for help." She almost smiled. "That's not a curse, Mr. Callahan. That's love, whether you're ready to call it that or not." The trouble came on a Sunday. Jacob was in the general store, Lily, in a makeshift sling Clara had fashioned, buying more supplies. The door swung open, bringing cold air, and Reverend Ezra Whitmore. The Reverend was a tall man, thin as a fence post, with eyes that burned with righteous certainty. He'd never liked Jacob, something about the way Jacob refused to bow his head during prayers, the way he'd stopped attending service after Sarah died. "Mr. Callahan." Whitmore's voice carried through the store. "I've been meaning to speak with you." "Reverend." "About the child." Whitmore's gaze dropped to Lily, and something flickered in his expression. Hunger, almost. "The foundling. Her name is Lily." "Yes. Well." Whitmore stepped closer, lowering his voice, but not low enough. The other customers leaned in, pretending not to listen. This situation is irregular. A single man raising a female child. The town has concerns. The town can keep its concerns to itself. The town cannot. Whitmore's eyes hardened. There are laws, Mr. Callahan. Moral laws as well as legal ones. A child needs proper raising, a mother and father, a Christian home. She has a home. Does she? Whitmore's voice rose slightly. Does she have a woman to teach her gentleness? Does she have a family to show her God's love? Does she have anything beyond a bitter, broken man who's forgotten how to live among decent people? The store had gone silent. Jacob felt the weight of every eye. The judgment, the curiosity, the vindication of people who'd always known he was damaged. Let me ask you something, Reverend. Jacob's voice was quiet, but it carried. You've been preaching in this town 15 years. In all that time, how many foundlings have you taken in? How many orphans have you clothed and fed and walked the floor with at 3 a.m? Whitmore's face reddened. That's not because I've had this child 9 days. 9 days of no sleep, of learning everything from scratch, of being terrified every minute that I'll do something wrong. And not once. Jacob stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Not once in those 9 days has anyone from your church knocked on my door offering to help. Except Clara Morrison, and you lot treat her almost as bad as you treat me. Mr. Callahan. You want to take this baby? Fine. Take her. Raise her yourself. Walk those floors. Change those diapers. Hold her when she cries for a mother who's dead in a frozen creek somewhere. Jacob's hands were shaking, but his voice stayed steady. But if you're not willing to do that, if all you've got is words and judgment, then get out of my way, because I've got a child to feed. He paid for his supplies and walked out. Behind him, the whispers exploded. That night, alone in his cabin, Jacob held Lily and talked to his dead wife. I don't know what I'm doing, Sarah. I don't know if I can do this. Everything they said is true. I am bitter. I am broken. I've forgotten how to live. Lily watched him, her dark eyes solemn. But she needs me. Right now, tonight, she needs me. And I don't know how to turn away from that. He swallowed hard. I turned away from everything after you died. Everything. I thought it would keep me safe. Thought if I didn't love anything, I couldn't lose anything. He looked down at Lily's face. I was wrong. I lost everything anyway. Lost myself. Lost 12 years of living. Lost any chance of honoring what we had by building something new. His finger traced her cheek, her tiny nose, her chin. They're going to fight me. The Reverend, the town, maybe the law itself. They're going to say I'm not fit, not worthy, not enough. And maybe they're right. His voice dropped to a whisper. But I'm all she's got. And she's all I've got. So we'll just have to be enough for each other. Lily yawned, her eyes drifting closed. I'm going to call you Lily, Jacob said. For your mama, who loved you enough to die getting you somewhere safe. For the flower that comes back every spring, no matter how hard the winter. For the hope I thought I'd buried with William. He held her close, feeling her warmth, her weight, her trust. We're going to make it, he whispered. You and me. I don't know how yet, but we're going to make it. Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the world in white. Inside, a broken man held a foundling child and chose, despite everything, to try. 3 days later, Marcus Holloway rode into town. Jacob heard about it from Clara when he brought Lily for her bathing lesson. Holloway was a land speculator from Helena, rich as sin and twice as slick. He'd been buying up ranches all across Wyoming, making offers that seemed generous until you read the fine print. He's been asking about you, Clara said, her hands gentle, as she showed Jacob how to support Lily's head in the water. About your land. My land isn't for sale. He knows that, Everyone knows that. Clara's voice dropped. But he also knows about Lily. Word travels fast and Holloway has ears everywhere. What's a baby got to do with my land? I don't know, but I don't like it. She looked up at him, her eyes worried. Be careful, Jake. Men like Holloway don't come to small towns for nothing. That afternoon, Holloway found him. Jacob was loading supplies into his wagon when a shadow fell across him. He looked up into a face that was handsome in a hungry way. Sharp cheekbones, cold blue eyes, a smile that showed too many teeth. Mr. Callahan? Holloway's voice was smooth as oil. I've been hoping to meet you. Can't imagine why. Your reputation precedes you. The war hero, the widower, the hermit. Holloway's smile widened. And now the unlikely father. You want something, Holloway, say it plain. Direct, I like that. Holloway leaned against the wagon, casual and confident. I want your land, Mr. Callahan. 2,000 acres of prime grazing territory, water rights to the Sweetwater Creek, and that North Ridge that would make a perfect railway stop. Land's not for sale. Everything's for sale. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Holloway's eyes glinted. Or the right pressure. Jacob went still. That a threat? An observation. Holloway straightened, brushing dust from his expensive coat. You've got a foundling baby, no legal claim to her, and a town council that's already talking about whether you're fit to raise her. One word from me to the territorial judge, and that baby's on her way to Helena by spring. And you think threatening her would make me sell to you? I think a man who's got nothing is dangerous. Hard to move, hard to scare. Holloway's voice dropped. But a man who's got something to lose, that man can be reasoned with. Jacob stepped closer. He was bigger than Holloway, broader, with hands that had broken horses and killed men. Let me make something clear. That little girl is mine. Not legally yet, maybe, but mine all the same. And there's nothing you can offer me, nothing you can threaten me with that will change that. We'll see. Yeah. Jacob's voice was quiet, but it carried weight. We will. Holloway smiled, tipped his hat, and walked away. But his words stayed with Jacob all the way home, circling like vultures. A man who's got something to lose. He'd lost everything once. Wife, son, hope, faith, even himself. Now he had Lily, and God help anyone who tried to take her from him. That night, Jacob wrote a letter. It wasn't elegant, he'd never been good with words, but it said what needed saying. To whom it may concern. My name is Jacob Callahan. On December 25, 1887, I found an abandoned infant in my barn. Her name is Lily. Her mother is dead, her father unknown. She has no one in this world except me. I am petitioning for legal adoption of this child. I know what people say about me. I know I'm not what anyone would choose as a father. I'm a widower, a loner, a man who's been broken by grief and hasn't learned how to put himself back together. But I love this child. I've loved her since the moment I picked her up, blue and cold and barely breathing, and felt her heart beating against mine. I can't give her everything, but I can give her safety, warmth, someone who will walk the floor with her at night and never, never give up on her. If that isn't enough, tell me what is. Tell me what she needs that I can't provide, because I'll find a way to provide it. Jacob Callahan. He sealed the letter and set it aside to mail tomorrow. Then he checked on Lily, sleeping peacefully in her drawer cradle, and sat down in his chair to watch over her. The fire burned low, the snow fell soft outside. And somewhere in the darkness, Jacob Callahan began to believe just a little that second chances were possible, even for men like him. The letter went out with the Morning Post, and Jacob told himself that was enough. That putting words on paper and sending them to the territorial judge would somehow protect Lily from everything coming their way. He was wrong. 2 weeks into January, the first real blow came. Jacob was at Clara's boarding house, learning how to mix oatmeal thin enough for Lily to swallow when the door banged open and Martha Chen rushed in breathless from running. "Jacob," she gasped. "You need to come to the town hall, now." "What's happened?" Reverend Whitmore called an emergency meeting. About Lily. Martha's eyes were wide with worry. "He's got signatures, Jacob. 37 of them. People saying you're unfit." Clara's hand found Jacob's arm, steadying him. "Go," she said quietly. "I'll watch Lily." "Clara?" "Go, fight for her." Jacob ran. The town hall was packed when he arrived. Standing room only faces he'd known for years turned toward him with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. Reverend Whitmore stood at the front, a sheaf of papers in his hand, his thin face glowing with righteous satisfaction. "Mr. Callahan," Whitmore said as Jacob pushed through the crowd, "how good of you to join us." "What is this?" "This is democracy, Mr. Callahan, the voice of the people." Whitmore held up the papers. 37 citizens of Oak Ridge have signed a petition requesting that the foundling child currently in your possession be removed and placed in proper care. Proper care. Jacob's voice was flat. "Meaning what?" "Meaning the Helena Orphan Asylum, where she can be raised by trained professionals and eventually adopted by a suitable family." Whitmore's eyes gleamed. "A complete family. Mother, father, Christian values. Everything a child needs to thrive. Everything except someone who loves her." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Whitmore's smile tightened. "Love is not enough, Mr. Callahan. Love without structure, without guidance, without a woman's gentle hand, that's not love. That's selfishness dressed up in noble clothing. And shipping her off to strangers 200 miles away. What's that dressed up as? Concern. For her welfare. For her soul." Whitmore turned to the crowd, his voice rising. "Brothers and sisters, we all know Jacob Callahan's history. A man who turned his back on God after tragedy struck. A man who's lived alone for 12 years, speaking to no one, joining nothing, contributing nothing to this community, except suspicion and silence. That's not—" someone started. "Is this the man we want raising a child?" Whitmore pressed on. "Is this the example we want set for an innocent girl? A bitter hermit who couldn't even save his own family?" The words hit Jacob like a physical blow. He saw Sarah's face pale on the pillow, William's small body still and cold, the graves he'd dug with his own hands while the whole town watched. "You don't know anything about my family. I know they died. I know you blame yourself. I know you've been punishing yourself ever since, and now you want to drag an innocent child into your penance." Whitmore's voice softened, almost kind. "Let her go, Jacob. Let her have a chance at a real life, a normal life. Don't condemn her to your darkness." Jacob opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, another voice cut through the hall. "That's enough, Ezra." Clara Morrison stood in the doorway, Lily in her arms. The crowd parted as she walked forward, her spine straight, her eyes blazing. She stopped beside Jacob and turned to face the assembly. "You want to talk about what a child needs?" Clara's voice was clear and steady. "I've been helping Jacob Callahan for 3 weeks now. I've seen him with this baby. I've watched him learn and struggle and fail and try again. I've seen him walk the floor at 3 in the morning because she couldn't sleep. I've seen him give up meals because she needed feeding first." "Mrs. Morrison," Whitmore started. "I'm not finished." Clara's tone could have frozen the river. "You talk about a woman's gentle hand. Reverend, I'm a woman. My hands are gentle when they need to be, and I'm standing right here offering to help raise this child alongside Jacob Callahan. Does that satisfy your requirements?" The silence that followed was absolute. Jacob stared at Clara, his heart pounding. She hadn't looked at him, hadn't asked permission, had simply stepped into the fire beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Mrs. Morrison," Whitmore said carefully, "are you suggesting some kind of arrangement?" "I'm suggesting that this town stop looking for reasons to destroy a good man and start looking for ways to help him." Clara finally turned to Jacob, her eyes soft. "I'm suggesting that Lily needs people who love her and I've come to love her very much. Whatever form that takes, neighbor friend, something more that's between Jacob and me. Not this council's business. It's the council's business when what? Sheriff Nate Cole pushed forward his badge, catching the lamplight. When a man finds an abandoned baby and does his best to keep her alive, when a woman offers to help. What crime are we prosecuting here, Ezra? This isn't about crime, it's about moral fitness. Moral fitness. Nate laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've known Jacob Callahan since Antietam. I've seen him carry wounded men through enemy fire. I've seen him give his last rations to soldiers who were starving. I've seen him hold dying boys and tell them their mothers loved them even when he knew those boys would never see home again. Nate's voice hardened. You want to talk about moral fitness? That man has more moral fiber in his little finger than this entire room combined. Another murmur, this one different. Shifting. Whitmore's face reddened. Sheriff Cole, your personal feelings. My personal feelings are that you're railroading a good man because you don't like how he grieves. Because he stopped coming to your church after God took everything from him. Because he had the audacity to be broken instead of pretending everything was fine. Nate stepped closer to Whitmore, lowering his voice. I know about your sister and Helena Ezra. The one who can't have children. The one who's been writing you letters about wanting to adopt. Whitmore went pale. You think I didn't wonder why you were pushing so hard, Nate continued. Why you specifically wanted Lily sent to Helena instead of any other orphanage. Your sister's on the board there, isn't she? First pick of any new arrivals. That's not... It's exactly what it is. Nate turned to the crowd. This man isn't trying to save a child. He's trying to deliver one to his family. And he's willing to destroy Jacob Callahan's reputation to do it. The murmur became a roar. People shouting, arguing, some defending Whitmore, others condemning him. Jacob stood frozen, Lily now in his arms. Clara had passed her over sometime during the chaos, watching everything he'd feared play out in real time. Then, Marcus Holloway's voice cut through the noise. If I might offer a solution. Everyone turned. Holloway stood near the back, immaculate in his city clothes, that cold smile playing on his lips. It seems to me, Holloway said, walking forward slowly, that everyone here wants what's best for the child. Mr. Callahan wants to keep her. Reverend Whitmore wants proper care for her. Mrs. Morrison wants to help raise her. He spread his hands. Why not all three? What are you proposing? Someone asked. A compromise, Mr. Callahan keeps the child provisionally with Mrs. Morrison's assistance. Regular inspections by the council to ensure proper care. And if at any point the arrangement proves unsuitable. Holloway's eyes found Jacob's. The child goes to Helena. No arguments, no appeals. That's reasonable, someone said. More than reasonable, another agreed. Jacob felt the trap closing around him. Holloway didn't care about Lily. He cared about the land, about having leverage, about being able to threaten unsuitable whenever Jacob refused to sell. But what choice did he have? Fine, Jacob said. Inspections, whatever you want, but she stays with me. Holloway smiled. Then we have an agreement. The meeting dissolved into smaller conversations, people drifting away, some offering Jacob grudging nods of support, others avoiding his eyes entirely. Clara stayed beside him, her hand on his arm. You know what he's doing, she murmured. I know. He'll use this against you, find reasons to declare you unfit. Probably. Clara was quiet for a moment. What I said, about helping raise her, I meant it. Jacob looked at her, really looked at her. At the strength in her face, the kindness in her eyes, the courage it must have taken to stand up in front of the whole town and align herself with the cursed man everyone avoided. Why? He asked. Because she needs it. Because you need it. Clara's voice softened. Because I've spent 5 years alone in that boarding house, Telling myself I didn't need anyone, didn't want anyone, was better off by myself. And then I watched you with that baby, and I remembered what it felt like to want something, to hope for something. Clara. I'm not asking for anything, Jacob. I'm offering. Whatever you need, however you need it. That's all. Lily stirred in Jacob's arms, making a small sound. He looked down at her face, then back at Clara's. Supper, he said. Tomorrow. My place. Bring whatever you need to make it edible. I can't cook worth a damn. Clara smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. I'll bring everything. The walk home felt different than before. Lighter somehow, despite everything. Jacob had enemies circling a town, divided, a rich man plotting against him. But he also had allies now. People willing to fight beside him. For the first time in 12 years, he wasn't completely alone. Lily fell asleep against his shoulder, her breath warm on his neck. Jacob held her close and kept walking one foot in front of the other toward whatever came next. The first inspection came 3 days later. Reverend Whitmore arrived at dawn with 2 council members, Marcus Holloway and Mrs. Adelaide Price, the town's most notorious gossip. Jacob had been up half the night with Lily, who was teething and miserable, and he hadn't had time to clean to prepare to make the cabin look like anything other than what it was, a bachelor's home hastily converted to accommodate an infant. Mr. Callahan. Whitmore's nose wrinkled as he stepped inside. This is cozy. It's warm and it's dry. That's what matters. Cleanliness matters too. Mrs. Price ran a finger along the mantel, examining the dust. A child needs a sanitary environment. She's got one. I clean what needs cleaning. And the sleeping arrangements? Holloway moved toward the back room where Lily's cradle sat beside Jacob's bed. You share a room with her. She's 3 months old. She needs to be close in case something happens. Holloway made a note on his pad. Unconventional. It's called being a father. Is it? Whitmore's voice dripped with false concern. Because from where I stand, it looks like a man playing house with a child he has no legal right to. I submitted my adoption petition, which hasn't been approved, which may never be approved. Whitmore smiled thinly. Until then, you're merely a caretaker, and caretakers can be replaced. Lily chose that moment to wake up crying. Jacob moved toward her, but Whitmore blocked his path. Let Mrs. Price attend to her. We need to discuss the terms of your continued custody. Get out of my way. Mr. Callahan, that's my daughter crying. Either move or I'll move you. Something in Jacob's voice made Whitmore step aside. Jacob crossed to the cradle and lifted Lily, holding her against his chest, murmuring soft words until her crying eased. You see, Whitmore said to Holloway, this is exactly the kind of aggression I was concerned about. Threatening behavior. Inability to control his temper. I see a father protecting his child. The voice came from the doorway. Clara stood there, basket in hand, eyes sharp. I see 3 people who showed up at dawn to harass a man who's been up all night with a teething baby, and I see myself about to make a very detailed report to Sheriff Cole about harassment and trespassing. We have council authority. You have authority to inspect, not to provoke, intimidate, or interfere. Clara set down her basket and moved to stand beside Jacob. I believe you've seen enough. The child is healthy, warm, and loved. Unless you have legitimate concerns to document, I suggest you leave. Holloway's eyes moved between Jacob and Clara, calculating. Mrs. Morrison, I wasn't aware you'd be here. I wasn't aware I needed your permission to visit a friend. Clara's smile was ice. My report will note that Mr. Callahan has a support system in place. Female influence, as you were so concerned about. Regular assistance with childcare. Everything above board. We'll see about that. Holloway closed his notebook. Inspections will continue weekly. I trust you'll ensure Mr. Callahan maintains these standards. I trust you'll ensure these inspections don't cross the line into persecution. Holloway tipped his hat, something mocking in the gesture, and led the others out. Only after their footsteps faded did Clara let out a breath. "They're going to keep pushing," she said quietly. "I know. Holloway especially. He wants your land, Jacob. He won't stop until he gets it, or finds another way to break you." Jacob looked down at Lily, now calm in his arms, chewing on his finger. "Then I'll have to make sure he can't break me." "How?" "I don't know yet." He met Clara's eyes. "But I'm not giving up. Not on her. Not on this." Clara nodded slowly. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and touched his face, her fingers gentle on his scarred cheek. "You're a good man, Jacob Callahan. Whatever they say, whatever they do, don't forget that." Jacob didn't know how to respond. It had been 12 years since anyone had touched him with tenderness. 12 years since anyone had looked at him like he was worth something. "Stay for breakfast," he managed. Clara smiled. "I thought you'd never ask?" February brought the worst blizzard in 20 years. Jacob had seen the signs, the still air, the nervous horses, the ache in his bad knee that always predicted weather. He'd stockpiled wood, secured the barn, made sure he had enough supplies to last 2 weeks if needed. What he hadn't planned for was Clara being trapped at his cabin when the storm hit. She'd come for her regular visit, bringing fresh bread and clean cloths for Lily, and they'd been talking. Really talking for the first time, when the wind started howling and the snow began falling so thick you couldn't see the barn from the porch. "You can't go out in that," Jacob said. "I have guests at the boarding house. Martha Chen is there. She can handle things." Jacob's voice was firm. "You go out in that, you'll be dead before you reach town." Clara looked at the window at the white wall of snow and nodded reluctantly. "I suppose you're right. I usually am." That surprised a laugh out of her. "Is that so?" "Ask Lily. She agrees with everything I say. She's 4 months old. She agrees with anyone who feeds her." They stood there, the storm raging outside, something shifting in the air between them. Clara was beautiful in the firelight, Jacob realized. Not the way Sarah had been beautiful. Sarah had been sunshine and summer, all warmth and golden light. Clara was winter beauty, strong and quiet and enduring. "I should check on Lily," Clara said, her voice slightly breathless. "She's sleeping. I should still check." "Clara." Jacob caught her arm as she turned away. "Why are you really doing this? Helping me, standing up to Holloway and Whitmore? Risking your reputation for a man this town thinks is cursed?" Clara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because my husband died thinking I didn't love him." Jacob went still. "We'd been arguing. About children, he wanted them. I wasn't sure I was ready. The morning he went to the mine, I was cold to him. Didn't kiss him goodbye. Didn't tell him I loved him." Her eyes glistened in the firelight. "And then the tunnel collapsed, and I never got to tell him anything ever again." "Clara, I've spent 5 years punishing myself for that. 5 years alone, refusing to let anyone close because I thought I didn't deserve it. Thought I was the one who was cursed, not you." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But watching you with Lily, watching you love her, despite everything you've lost, despite everything you're afraid of, it made me realize something. Punishing ourselves doesn't bring them back. It just means we lose twice." Jacob's hand moved before he could stop it, wiping the tears from her cheek. "I think about them every day, Sarah, William. I think about everything I should have done differently. Every moment I wasted being angry or tired or distracted when I could have been present. Do you think they'd want this for you? The loneliness, the walls?" "No." His voice cracked. "Sarah would hate it. She'd tell me to stop being a stubborn fool and let people love me." "Then maybe you should listen to her." They stood inches apart, the fire crackling, the storm howling, and something that had been frozen for 12 years began to thaw. "I don't know how to do this anymore," Jacob admitted. "I don't know how to let someone in. I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not asking you to be anything." Clara's hand found his. "I'm asking you to try. to let yourself feel something besides grief. To believe that maybe, just maybe, this cursed man and this guilty widow might find something worth holding on to. And if it goes wrong, if I lose you too. Clara squeezed his hand. Then at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll know you were brave enough to hope. Jacob closed his eyes. He thought of Sarah, of William, of the graves on the hill that he visited every Sunday. He thought of Lily sleeping peacefully in the next room, trusting him completely. He thought of all the years he'd wasted being afraid. Supper, he said finally. Every night. Here, when you can make it. We'll take it slow. See what happens. Clara smiled through her tears. I can do supper. And Clara, he lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being worth not giving up on. The storm raged for 3 days. 3 days of being trapped together, cooking meals, taking turns with Lily, talking late into the night about everything and nothing. By the time the snow stopped, something had changed between them. Something that felt like a beginning. But the thaw brought new dangers. A week after the storm, Sheriff Nate Cole rode up to Jacob's cabin with a face like thunder. We've got a problem. Jacob's stomach dropped. Lily. Not directly, but connected. Nate swung down from his horse. A woman came into town yesterday. Young, maybe 20, asking about a baby that was abandoned on Christmas. The mother's dead. I found tracks. Not the mother, someone else. Nate's jaw tightened. She says she's the baby's aunt. Says her sister ran away from home pregnant last fall and the family's been searching for her ever since. Says she has a legal claim to the child. The world tilted. Jacob grabbed the porch rail to steady himself. Where is she now? My office, waiting to talk to you. Nate put a hand on Jacob's shoulder. Jake, I have to tell you she seems legitimate. Has papers, family records, a whole story that checks out. And she's got money behind her, lots of it. Who's her family? Nate hesitated. The Harringtons, out of St. Louis. Jacob knew that name. Everyone in the territory knew that name. Railroad money, political connections, the kind of family that got what they wanted no matter who stood in their way. If they want Lily, then we've got a fight on our hands. Nate's eyes were grim but determined. But we've fought harder battles, you and me, and we're still standing. Jacob looked toward the cabin where Clara was watching Lily, where everything he'd built over the past 2 months waited to be torn apart. Let's go meet this aunt, he said. Jake. No, I need to see her, need to understand what we're facing. He squared his shoulders. Whatever happens, I'm not giving Lily up without a fight. Not to Holloway, not to Whitmore, and not to some rich family who couldn't be bothered to help her mother when she needed it. Nate nodded slowly. That's the Jacob Callahan I remember. Yeah, well. Jacob started toward the barn. He's been asleep for a while. Time he woke up. The ride to town felt endless. Every hoofbeat was a countdown, every mile bringing Jacob closer to the woman who might destroy everything. He thought about running, packing up Lily and Clara, and disappearing into the mountains where no one would find them. But that wasn't a life. That was hiding. And Lily deserved better than a father who ran from his problems. The sheriff's office was small and warm, heated by a potbelly stove that glowed cherry red. A woman sat in the corner chair, young and pretty, in an expensive traveling dress, her blonde hair pinned beneath a fashionable hat. She looked up when Jacob entered, and her eyes blew as mountain lakes went wide. Mr. Callahan. Miss Harrington. She stood smoothing her skirts. I'm Josephine. Josephine Harrington. Annabelle was my sister. Was. Josephine's face crumpled. We found her 3 days ago, in a cabin by the Sweetwater Creek. She'd died in childbirth, bled to death alone after... Her voice broke. After she walked 6 miles through the snow to leave her baby somewhere safe. Jacob felt the words like a punch. 6 miles. In labor. dying, because she believed he would protect her child. "I'm sorry," he said, "for your loss. Are you—" Josephine's voice sharpened. "Because you have her baby. You've had her for 2 months, and you never once tried to find her family. Her family threw her out. The note said what she believed, what she'd been told." Josephine stepped closer, anger burning in her eyes. "Our father disowned her when she got pregnant, said she'd shamed the family, but our mother never stopped looking, never stopped hoping. And now—" She choked on a sob. "Now she's dead. My sister is dead, and all we have left of her is that baby. Her name is Lily. I don't care what you call her. She's a Harrington. She belongs with her family. She belongs with someone who loves her." "And you think you love her?" Josephine laughed bitterly. "You're a stranger, a rancher, a man who found her by accident and decided to play father. What do you know about raising a girl, about giving her the life she deserves? I know I've been there every night when she cried. I know I've held her through fevers and teething and nightmares. I know that the first person she smiled at was me, and the first word she'll probably say will be meant for me." Jacob's voice was steady despite the storm inside him. "What do you know about her, Miss Harrington? What do you know about what she needs? I know my mother is dying of grief. I know she needs to hold her granddaughter before—" Josephine's voice cracked again. "Please, please, Mr. Callahan. I'm not asking you to give her up forever. I'm asking you to let us know her. Let us be part of her life." Jacob studied her face, looking for the lie, the manipulation. But all he saw was grief. All he saw was a young woman who'd lost her sister and was desperate to save something from the wreckage. "I have papers," Josephine continued. "Lawyers. If I wanted, I could take this to court. I could have her removed from your custody by force. But I don't want that. My sister chose you for a reason. She trusted you. I want to understand why." "You want to understand?" "Yes." Jacob took a breath. "Then come to my cabin. Meet Lily. See how she lives, how she's cared for. See the woman who's helping me raise her. Then decide if you want to fight me or work with me." Josephine wiped her eyes. "And if I decide to fight, then we fight. And I warn you, Miss Harrington, I've fought battles that make courtrooms look like tea parties. I've buried my wife and my son. I've survived things that should have killed me. And I've spent 2 months learning to love that little girl like she was my own flesh and blood." He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "There is nothing on this earth that will make me give her up. Nothing and no one. So if you want a war, I'll give you one. But I'm asking you for Lily's sake, for your sister's memory, don't make me fight." The silence stretched between them. Then Josephine nodded slowly. "Tomorrow," she said. "I'll come tomorrow, and I'll decide then." "Fair enough." Jacob turned and walked out into the cold afternoon air. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. But somewhere beneath the fear, something else was burning. Determination. He'd told Holloway he wasn't giving up. He'd told Clara he would try. He'd promised Lily he would protect her. Now it was time to prove he meant it. Josephine Harrington arrived at noon the next day, her carriage kicking up mud from the thawing road. Jacob watched from the porch, Lily in his arms, Clara standing beside him like a soldier awaiting battle. "She brought lawyers," Clara murmured, eyeing the 2 men in dark suits who climbed out behind Josephine. "Expected as much. Jacob, if they try to take her, they won't. Not today." He shifted Lily to his other arm. "Today is about showing them who we are, what we've built. The fighting comes later if it has to." Josephine approached slowly, her expensive boots picking through the mud. Her eyes went immediately to Lily, and something in her face softened. "She looks like Annabelle," she said quietly. "The same dark eyes, the same chin. You want to hold her?" Josephine hesitated. "May I?" Jacob transferred Lily carefully into her arms. The baby studied this new face with solemn curiosity, then reached up and grabbed a strand of Josephine's blonde hair. "Hello, little one," Josephine's voice cracked. "Hello, Lily. I'm your Aunt Josie. I've been looking for you for a very long time." Clara touched Jacob's arm, a silent question. He shook his head slightly. "Let it play out. Let her see." "Come inside," Jacob said. "Coffee's hot. We can talk." The cabin felt smaller with 5 people in it. The lawyers stationed themselves by the door, notebooks ready, eyes cataloging everything. Josephine sat by the fire with Lily, unable to stop staring at her niece's face. "She's healthy," Josephine said finally. "Well-fed, clean, happy." "She's loved," Clara said. "That's what makes the difference." "And you are?" "Clara Morrison. I help Jacob with Lily's care. I run the boarding house in town." "You're not married to him." "No. But you're here every day. Living arrangement. Friendship. Support. Whatever it needs to be." Clara's voice was steady. "Labels matter less than presence, Miss Harrington. I'm present. That's what Lily needs." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Mr. Callahan, we should discuss the legal situation." "Should we?" "The Harrington family has a legitimate claim to this child. Annabelle Harrington was her mother. The family can prove lineage, provide financial security, offer educational opportunities far beyond what a rancher can offer." Jacob's voice was mild, but his eyes were hard. "Say what you mean, counselor." "I mean no offense. But surely you can see that a child raised in Helena with access to the best schools, the finest society, every advantage money can provide. Every advantage except parents who chose her." The lawyer blinked. "I'm sorry. I chose Lily." Jacob leaned forward. "I found her freezing in my barn, and I chose to save her. I chose to keep her when everyone told me to send her away. I chose to fight for her when this town tried to take her from me. I chose her every single day for 2 months through sleepless nights and impossible days, and a world that said I wasn't fit to raise her." He looked at Josephine, who was watching him with something unreadable in her expression. "What did your family choose? Your father threw Annabelle out when she got pregnant. Your mother searched for her, sure, but did she defy your father? Did she risk anything? Did anyone in your family choose Annabelle the way I've chosen Lily?" "That's not fair," Josephine whispered. "None of this is fair. Your sister died alone in a cabin 6 miles from here because she had nowhere else to go. She walked through a blizzard in labor because she believed I would protect her baby. That's the choice she made, and I'll be damned if I let anyone undo it." Lily started to fuss, picking up on the tension in the room. Josephine looked down at her, uncertain, and the baby's fussing grew louder. "May I?" Clara asked, reaching for her. Josephine handed Lily over, and within seconds Clara had calmed her. A gentle bounce, a soft hum, the practiced movements of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. "You see that?" Jacob said quietly. "That's what Lily knows. That's who she trusts. Not money, not lawyers, not a family name. Just people who show up for her day after day, choice after choice." Josephine was silent for a long moment. Then she stood smoothing her skirts and turned to the lawyers. "Wait outside." "Miss Harrington." "I said wait outside." The lawyers exchanged glances, but complied. When the door closed behind them, Josephine's composure cracked. "I didn't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know what Father did. I was away at school when Annabelle left. Mother told me she'd gone to visit relatives. It wasn't until 6 months later that I learned the truth, and by then—" She pressed a hand to her mouth. "By then it was too late. She was gone. No one knew where. But you looked for her." "I hired investigators. Spent my own money, went behind Father's back. Mother helped when she could, but Annabelle didn't want to be found. She was ashamed, scared, and now—" Josephine's tears fell freely. "Now she's dead, and I never got to tell her I was sorry. I never got to tell her I would have helped." Clara moved to her side, one hand still supporting Lily. "You're here now. That counts for something." "Does it?" Josephine looked at Jacob. You hate my family. You have every right to. We failed her. We failed her in every way that mattered. I don't hate you. Jacob's voice was tired. I hate what happened. I hate that a young woman died alone because the people who should have protected her didn't. But hating you won't bring her back, won't help Lily. Then what will... Jacob took a breath. This was the moment. The choice that would shape everything. Your mother. You said she's dying. Josephine nodded. Cancer. The doctors give her 6 months, maybe less. When she heard about Lily, her voice broke again. It's the first time she's smiled in weeks. The first hope she's had. Bring her here. Josephine stared at him. What? Bring your mother here. Let her meet Lily. Let her hold her granddaughter. Jacob's jaw tightened. I won't let you take Lily to Helena. I won't let her be raised by strangers, surrounded by money, but not love. But I'm not cruel enough to deny a dying woman the chance to know her grandchild. You would do that? After everything. Annabelle chose me. She trusted me with the most precious thing she had. I reckon that means I owe her something. And what I owe her is making sure her daughter knows where she came from, knows the family that could have been, even if it wasn't. Josephine crossed the room and took Jacob's hands in hers. Her grip was fierce, desperate. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I can't. Don't thank me yet. This doesn't mean I'm giving up my claim. Lily stays here with me and Clara. Your family can visit, can be part of her life, but she's my daughter. That's not changing. I understand. Josephine squeezed his hands. I'll talk to the lawyers. I'll make them understand too. And your father? Josephine's expression hardened. My father lost the right to have an opinion about this family the day he threw his pregnant daughter into the street. Whatever happens, he won't be involved. Jacob nodded slowly. Then we have an understanding. We do. Clara let out a breath Jacob hadn't realized she'd been holding. I'll make more coffee. Seems like we have a lot to discuss. The tension broke like a fever. Josephine sat back down this time closer to Jacob, and they began to talk. Really talk. About Annabelle as a child, mischievous and bright. About the man who'd gotten her pregnant, a hired hand who'd disappeared when he learned about the baby. About the family that had fractured, and the mother who'd never stopped loving her lost daughter. By the time the lawyers were called back inside, everything had changed. Legal documents would still need to be drafted, agreements formalized, but the war Jacob had braced for was transforming into something else entirely. An alliance. A family strange and broken and new. Marcus Holloway heard about the Harrington visit within hours. Jacob was in town the next morning picking up supplies when Holloway intercepted him outside the general store. I hear you've made powerful friends. Holloway said, that cold smile playing on his lips. The Harringtons. Railroad money. Impressive. What do you want, Holloway? The same thing I've always wanted. Your land. Holloway stepped closer, lowering his voice. But I'm a reasonable man, Callahan. I understand that circumstances change, so I'm prepared to make you a new offer. Not interested. You haven't heard it yet. Don't need to. My land's not for sale. Not to you, not to anyone. Holloway's smile didn't waver, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. You think having the Harringtons on your side changes anything? You think their money protects you? I think you should walk away while you can. Or what, you'll fight me? Holloway laughed. I've broken better men than you, Callahan. Men with more money, more connections, more to lose. You're just a rancher with a borrowed baby and a widow warming his bed. You're nothing. Jacob moved before he could stop himself, grabbing Holloway by the collar and slamming him against the storefront wall. The impact rattled windows. People stopped to stare. Say that again, Jacob growled. Say one more word about Clara or Lily. I dare you. Holloway's face had gone pale, but his voice stayed steady. This is assault. Sheriff Cole will hear about this. Sheriff Cole can hear whatever he wants, but you remember something, Holloway. Jacob's grip tightened. I survived Antietam. I survived burying my family. I survived 12 years of hell inside my own head. You think you scare me? You're nothing but a bully with money, and bullies always lose in the end. He released Holloway with a shove that sent the man stumbling. Without another word, Jacob gathered his supplies and walked away. His hands were shaking. He'd lost control, done exactly what Holloway wanted, given him ammunition proof of instability, a reason to push harder. But God help him, it had felt good. The fever came 3 nights later. Jacob woke to Lily's crying. Not the usual fussing, but something sharper, more desperate. He lit the lamp and found her face flushed red, her tiny body burning hot. No, he breathed. No, no, no. Clara was there within the hour he'd sent his fastest horse to fetch her. She took one look at Lily, and her face went pale. How long has she been like this? I don't know. She was fine at bedtime. I checked on her at midnight, and she was sleeping peaceful. Then I woke up and... His voice cracked. Clara, she's burning up. We need Doc Patterson. It's the middle of the night. The roads... I don't care about the roads. Clara was already wrapping Lily in cool cloths. If we don't get her fever down, Jacob... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Jacob rode through darkness so thick he could barely see his own hands on the reins. The memory of another ride crashed over him, the blizzard, the desperate race to save Lily when she was just days old. He'd made it then. He had to make it now. Doc Patterson was awake when Jacob pounded on his door, sitting up with another patient. He took one look at Jacob's face and grabbed his bag. The baby. Fever. High. Clara's with her, but let's go. The ride back felt endless. Every minute was a minute. Lily might be slipping away. A minute, her fever might be climbing higher. A minute, her small body might be giving up the fight. When they reached the cabin, Clara met them at the door. Her face was tear-streaked, but focused. She's still breathing. Fever's holding steady but not dropping. Doc Patterson went to work immediately, examining Lily with practiced hands, listening to her chest, checking her eyes and ears. Infection, he said finally. Probably from teething. She's been chewing on everything, right? Bacteria got in, took hold. It's serious but treatable if we act fast. What do? Keep her cool, force fluids, and pray. Doc Patterson pulled a bottle from his bag. This tincture will help with the fever. 3 drops every 4 hours. Don't miss a dose. Jacob took the bottle like it was made of gold. Will she be okay? Doc Patterson met his eyes, and Jacob saw the truth there. The uncertainty, the fear, the same awful knowledge that had haunted him since the day William got sick. I don't know, the doctor said honestly. She's strong. You've kept her healthy. But fevers in babies this young, it could go either way. The next 24 hours will tell us. The next 24 hours. Jacob had lived through hell, had survived war and loss and a decade of loneliness so profound it had nearly destroyed him. But nothing compared to this. Nothing compared to watching Lily struggle for every breath, her tiny face contorted with discomfort, her fever rising and falling like a tide he couldn't control. Clara stayed by his side through all of it. They took turns holding Lily, forcing water into her, applying cool cloths to her forehead. When Jacob's hands shook too badly to measure the tincture, Clara did it. When Clara's eyes grew too heavy to keep open, Jacob kept watch. Sometime around dawn, he started talking. I never told you about William, he said, his voice rough from exhaustion. My son. He was 3 when the fever took him. Clara's hand found his in the darkness. Sarah got sick first. I thought if I could just keep William safe, if I could protect him, she'd want me to. She'd want me to save him, even if I couldn't save her. Jacob's voice broke. But I couldn't. I couldn't save either of them. I held my boy while he died, and there was nothing I could do. Nothing. Jacob, I swore I'd never feel that again. Never love anything enough to lose it like that. I built walls so high no one could get through." He looked down at Lily still and flushed in his arms. "But she got through. She got through like it was nothing, like my walls were made of paper. That's what love does. And if I lose her too, if God takes her the way he took William—" Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder, her warmth solid and real in the cold cabin. "Then you'll know you loved her," she said softly. "You'll know you were brave enough to try. And that's worth something, Jacob. That's worth everything." "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You're the strongest man I've ever known." "I'm not. You're just a man who keeps showing up, who keeps fighting even when he wants to give up, who keeps choosing love even when it terrifies him." Clara lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "That's strength, Jacob. The real kind. The only kind that matters." Lily stirred in his arms, making a small sound. Her forehead was still hot, but something about her breathing had eased. She blinked up at him, those dark eyes that had captured his heart from the first moment, and her tiny hand found his finger. "Hey there," Jacob whispered. "Hey, little one, you fighting for me." Lily's grip tightened. Her eyes stayed fixed on his face. "That's my girl. That's my brave girl. You keep fighting. Daddy's right here. Daddy's not going anywhere." The word slipped out before he could stop it. Daddy. He'd never said it before, never let himself think it. But it was true. Had been true since Christmas morning when he'd lifted her from the manger and felt the first crack in his frozen heart. He was her daddy, and he wasn't going to let her go. The fever broke at noon. One moment Lily was burning hot, struggling, her breathing labored. The next, the tension drained from her body, her forehead cooled under Clara's hand, and she let out a cry, a real cry, strong and healthy and demanding. "Jacob!" Clara's voice was shaking. "Jacob, feel her!" He pressed his palm to Lily's forehead. Cool. Not cold, but cool. Normal. Oh, God. His legs gave out. He sank to his knees beside the cradle, tears streaming down his face. "Oh, God, thank you. Thank you." Clara knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around them both. They stayed that way for a long time, the three of them tangled together, crying and laughing and holding on. Doc Patterson returned that afternoon and confirmed what they already knew. The fever had broken. The infection was clearing. Lily would recover. "You did good," he told Jacob, keeping her cool, keeping fluids in her. "A lot of babies don't make it through a fever like that. She did because you wouldn't give up." "I couldn't give up. She's my daughter." Doc Patterson smiled. "I know. The whole town knows." He patted Jacob's shoulder. "Whatever they said before, whatever doubts they had, I think you've answered them. A man who'd stay up 3 days straight, who'd ride through darkness for medicine, who'd cry over a baby's broken fever. That's a father. Plain and simple." After the doctor left, Jacob stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky. Clara joined him, slipping her hand into his. "She's sleeping," Clara said. "Peacefully. Naturally." "Good. You should sleep too." "I will. Just need a minute." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the light fade. In the cabin behind them, Lily slept soundly. In the town below, people were having supper, living their lives, unaware of the war that had been fought and won in this small cabin. "I meant what I said," Jacob said finally. "During the fever, I called myself her daddy." "I heard. Is that okay? With everything happening with the Harringtons, with the legal situation?" Clara turned to face him. "Jacob Callahan, you are that child's father. Not because of papers or law or blood, because you chose her, because you fought for her, because you love her more than anything in this world." She touched his face, her fingers gentle on his scarred cheek. "Nothing and no one can take that away." "And us. What are we?" Clara smiled. "We're whatever we want to be, whatever we're brave enough to become." I'm not good at this, at talking about feelings, at opening up. I know. I'm probably going to mess it up. Say the wrong thing. Push you away when I should pull you close. Probably. But I want to try. With you. If you'll have me. Clara's answer was to lean up and press her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, two wounded people learning to trust again. Then it deepened, became something real, and solid and true. When they finally pulled apart, Jacob rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he said. "Not for anything else. Just stay. I don't want to be alone anymore." "You won't be," Clara whispered. "Not ever again." Inside the cabin, Lily slept on, dreaming whatever babies dream. Outside, the stars emerged, one by one, bright points of light in the endless Wyoming sky. And somewhere in the space between a broken man and a lonely woman, found something worth believing in. Eleanor Harrington arrived on the first warm day of March, carried in a private rail car that cost more than most men earned in a lifetime. Jacob watched from the platform as servants helped her down the steps, a frail woman wrapped in furs, despite the mild weather, her face gaunt, but her eyes burning with desperate hope. Josephine supported her mother's arm, guiding her toward where Jacob stood with Lily. Clara waited beside him, her hand resting lightly on his back. "Mrs. Harrington," Jacob said, tipping his hat. Eleanor's eyes went immediately to Lily. Her breath caught and tears spilled down her hollowed cheeks. "She looks like Annabelle," Eleanor whispered. "Dear God, she looks exactly like my Annabelle." "Would you like to hold her?" Eleanor's hands shook as she reached for her granddaughter. Lily studied this new face with solemn curiosity, then reached up and touched Eleanor's wet cheek. "Hello, precious girl." Eleanor's voice broke. "Hello, my darling. I'm your grandmother. I've been waiting so long to meet you." Lily made a small cooing sound, and Eleanor laughed through her tears. It was a broken sound full of grief and joy tangled together, and Jacob felt something in his chest loosen. This was right. Whatever else happened, this was right. "Mr. Callahan." Eleanor looked up at him, still cradling Lily. "My daughter, did she suffer?" Jacob thought about lying, about softening the truth, but Eleanor deserved better than that. "She was alone," he said quietly. "She walked 6 miles through a blizzard to reach my barn. She gave birth by herself, wrapped Lily in everything she had, and left her in my manger, with a note asking me to love her." He paused. "She died trying to save her baby. I don't know if that's suffering or the bravest thing I've ever heard of." Eleanor closed her eyes. "That was my Annabelle. Brave, stubborn, so afraid to ask for help, but willing to do anything for the people she loved. She should have had help. She should have had family around her." "Yes," Eleanor's voice was barely audible. "She should have, and that failure is something I'll carry to my grave." She looked at Jacob with red-rimmed eyes. "But you helped her, not when it was easy, but when it mattered. You took her baby, and you loved her. You gave my granddaughter what we couldn't." "I didn't do it for thanks." "I know. That's why I'm thanking you." Eleanor straightened slightly, some steel returning to her spine. "Josephine told me about your arrangement, that Lily stays with you, but we can be part of her life." "That's right. I want you to know I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to take her away." Eleanor's grip on Lily tightened slightly. "I'm here to see my granddaughter, to know she's safe and loved, and to tell you that whatever you need, money, lawyers, protection from anyone who threatens this family, you have it." "Mrs. Harrington." "Eleanor, please." She managed a watery smile. "We're family now, Mr. Callahan. Unconventional, perhaps, but family nonetheless." Clara stepped forward, her voice gentle. "You must be exhausted from the journey. We've prepared a room at my boarding house. Warm, comfortable, close enough to visit Lily every day." "You're the widow Josephine mentioned." Eleanor studied Clara with shrewd eyes. The one who's been helping Jacob raise my granddaughter. Yes, ma'am. Do you love this child? Clara didn't hesitate. With all my heart. And do you love the man who found her? The question hung in the air. Jacob felt heat rise to his face. Clara's cheeks flushed pink. I do, Clara said quietly, though we haven't spoken those words to each other yet. Eleanor's smile widened. Then I suggest you do. Life is shorter than any of us realize, and words left unspoken become the heaviest burdens we carry. She looked at Jacob. Trust me on this. I waited too long to tell Annabelle I loved her. I waited too long to stand up to my husband. I waited too long for everything that mattered. Don't make my mistakes. Jacob met Clara's eyes across the small distance between them. So much had happened in the past months. So much fear, so much fighting, so much learning to trust again. And through all of it, Clara had been there. Steady, strong, present. I love you, he said. The words came out rough, unpracticed. I should have said it before, should have said it 100 times. But I love you, Clara. I love you and I want you in my life. Not just as help with Lily, as my partner, my family. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, Jacob Callahan. I've loved you since the day you stood in my kitchen terrified and exhausted asking how to care for a baby you'd known for 3 days. Well then. Eleanor's voice was warm with approval. That's settled. Now, may I spend some time with my granddaughter? I have months of grandmothering to catch up on. The Harringtons stayed for 2 weeks. Every day, Eleanor came to the cabin and held Lily for hours singing songs, telling stories about Annabelle as a child, memorizing every detail of her granddaughter's face. She was dying, and everyone knew it, but in those moments with Lily, she seemed to forget. Josephine proved to be different than Jacob had expected. Beneath the fancy clothes and proper manners was a young woman hungry for something real. She helped Clara with chores, learned to change diapers, even attempted to cook one disastrous meal that left everyone laughing. You don't have to do this, Jacob told her one afternoon watching her hang laundry on the line. I know. I want to. Josephine pinned a tiny dress to the rope. My whole life has been about appearances. The right clothes, the right friends, the right parties. None of it was real. None of it mattered. She looked at him. This matters. This family, strange as it is, this is real. Your father won't approve. My father can go to hell. Josephine's voice was fierce. He threw out his daughter and broke my mother's heart. He doesn't get an opinion anymore. And when mother dies, Josephine's jaw tightened. Then I'll grieve. And then I'll come back here if you'll have me. I want to be part of Lily's life, part of your family, not as a threat or a complication, as an aunt who loves her. Jacob was quiet for a moment, studying this woman who had arrived as an enemy and was leaving as something like a sister. You'll always be welcome here, he said finally, whatever happens. Josephine's eyes glistened. Thank you. That means more than you know. Marcus Holloway made his move the day after the Harringtons left. Jacob was in town filing papers at the land office when the clerk handed him an envelope with trembling hands. Mr. Holloway asked me to give this to you personally, the clerk said. I'm sorry, Mr. Callahan, I truly am. Jacob opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document, a lien against his property claiming he owed debts to a bank in Helena that had been bought by Holloway's company. His heart went cold. This is a lie, he said. I don't owe anyone anything. My land is paid for. The document says otherwise. There's a hearing scheduled for next week. If you can't prove the debt is invalid, they'll seize the property. Jacob crumpled the paper in his fist. Where's Holloway? Mr. Callahan, I don't think... But Jacob was already gone. He found Holloway at the saloon drinking whiskey with 2 of his lawyers, looking like a man who'd already won. When Jacob burst through the doors, Holloway didn't even flinch. Mr. Callahan, I wondered how long it would take. This is fraud. Jacob threw the crumpled paper on the table. You fabricated this debt. You're trying to steal my land. I'm trying to collect what I'm owed. The paperwork is all perfectly legal. My lawyers will be happy to show you. Your lawyers can show me nothing. I know what I owe and what I don't. And I know you've been trying to break me since the day you rode into this town. Holloway stood brushing dust from his expensive jacket. Break you, Mr. Callahan, I'm offering you a way out. Sell me the land at a fair price, and this all goes away. The debt, the hearing, the uncertainty about your daughter's custody. Lily's custody is settled. Is it? Holloway's smile was poison. The Harringtons may have softened, but there are others who haven't. Reverend Whitmore still believes that child should be in Helena. And if you lose your land, lose your livelihood, lose the stability that makes you a fit parent. He spread his hands. Well, even Sheriff Cole might have to admit you're in no position to raise a child. You son of a bitch! Careful, Mr. Callahan. Threats won't help your case. Neither will violence. Holloway leaned closer, dropping his voice. You have 1 week. Sell me the land or lose everything. Your choice. Jacob's hands were shaking with rage. Every instinct screamed at him to grab Holloway and beat him until that smug smile disappeared forever. But that was exactly what Holloway wanted. Another assault charge, more ammunition. This isn't over, Jacob said. No, Holloway agreed. It isn't, but it will be soon. Clara found Jacob in the barn that night attacking a pile of wood with an axe like it had personally wronged him. Jacob. He didn't stop swinging. Jacob, please. The axe embedded itself in the chopping block. Jacob stood there breathing hard, his shirt soaked with sweat despite the cold. He's going to take everything, Jacob said. The land, Lily, everything I've built. He's going to try. That's not the same thing. Clara, you don't understand. I've been through the papers, looked at everything. The documents are fake, but they're good fakes. Professional. It'll take weeks to prove they're fraudulent, and by then we'll have fought back. Clara crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. Jacob Callahan, look at me. He met her eyes. You are not alone anymore. You have me. You have Nate. You have the Harringtons and their lawyers and their money. You have a town that's watched you transform from a hermit into a father. Her voice was fierce. Holloway thinks he can break you because he doesn't understand what you've become. He sees the lonely rancher from 6 months ago. He doesn't see the man who rode through a blizzard for his daughter. The man who stood up to a town council and won. The man who earned the respect of everyone who matters. What if it's not enough? Then we lose. Clara's grip tightened. And we rebuild. And we keep fighting. Because that's what families do, Jacob. They fight for each other. They don't give up. I've lost before. I've lost everything before. And you survived. You survived, and you grew, and you became someone worthy of that little girl sleeping in the cabin. Clara kissed him hard and fierce. You are not your past, Jacob. You are not your losses. You are the man who chose love over fear, who chose hope over safety. And I will stand beside you no matter what comes. Jacob pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you've got me anyway. Despite everything, he laughed. It came up from somewhere deep, a sound of release and surrender, and something that might have been peace. I love you, he said. I know. Now come inside. We've got a war to plan. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. By Sunday night, Jacob's small cabin had become a command center. Nate Cole sat at the table with maps and documents spread before him. Josephine had returned from Helena with a team of Harrington lawyers, all of them grimly determined. Clara coordinated everything, keeping coffee hot and tempers cool. The debt documents are forgeries. The lead lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Bennett, announced. We can prove it, but we need time. The originals he's claiming to have never existed. The bank he says issued the loan went out of business in 1882. Can we get proof of that by tomorrow? We've wired Helena. The record should arrive on the morning train. Should, Nate said. That's not good enough. It's what we have. Jacob stared at the papers, his mind racing. What if the records don't arrive in time? Then we request a postponement, Bennett said. But Holloway has friends on the territorial court. They might not grant it. So we need another option. Jacob. Josephine leaned forward. There's something you should know. I've been digging into Holloway's past. He's done this before in Colorado, in Kansas, in Nebraska. Fabricated debts, stolen land, ruined families. He's never been caught because he's always had enough money to cover his tracks. How does that help us? Because the people he's ruined are still out there, and some of them might be willing to talk. Josephine's eyes gleamed. If we can show a pattern of fraud, it doesn't matter what his fake documents say. No judge in the territory will side with a known swindler. How do we find these people by tomorrow? We don't, but we might not have to. Josephine pulled out a letter. This came yesterday, from a woman in Denver named Margaret Sullivan. Her husband was one of Holloway's victims. He killed himself after losing their ranch. She's been collecting evidence for years, waiting for a chance to use it. And she's on her way here right now. She should arrive on the same train as the bank records. Hope flickered in Jacob's chest. Dangerous, fragile hope. If she doesn't make it, then we fight with what we have. Clara's voice was steady. But she'll make it. She has to. The train was late. Jacob stood on the platform watching the empty tracks, his heart pounding. The hearing was in 2 hours. Bennett was already at the courthouse stalling, but there was only so much delay they could manage. Clara stood beside him, her hand in his. Lily was with Josephine at the boarding house, safe and unaware of everything that hung in the balance. She'll come, Clara said. And if she doesn't, then we face whatever comes, together. The minutes crawled by. 1 hour until the hearing, 50 minutes, 40. Then in the distance a whistle. Jacob's breath caught as the train appeared around the bend, smoke billowing from its stack. It seemed to take forever to reach the station, forever to slow down, forever for the doors to open. A woman stepped off, middle-aged, plain-faced, with eyes that had seen too much pain. She carried a worn leather satchel, like it contained her whole life. "Mr. Callahan," she asked. "Mrs. Sullivan." "I brought everything." She held up the satchel. 15 years of evidence. Letters, documents, testimony from other victims. Enough to put Marcus Holloway away for the rest of his miserable life. Jacob felt his knees go weak with relief. Why did you do this?" "Because my husband is dead. Because Holloway destroyed us and walked away laughing. Because every night for 15 years I've dreamed of seeing him pay." Margaret Sullivan's voice was iron. "You gave me that chance, Mr. Callahan. Now let's make sure we don't waste it." The courthouse was packed when they arrived. Every seat was filled, townspeople crammed into every corner, all of them watching as Jacob walked up the aisle with Clara on one side and Margaret Sullivan on the other. Holloway sat at the front, flanked by his lawyers, his confident smile flickering slightly at the sight of the newcomer. "What is this?" he demanded. "Who is that woman?" Judge Harrison banged his gavel. "Order. Mr. Callahan, you're late." "My apologies. Your Honor, we were waiting for a witness." "A witness? This is a debt hearing, not a criminal trial." "With respect, Your Honor, it may become one." Bennett stepped forward. "We have evidence that Mr. Holloway's claim is fraudulent, that the documents he's presented are forgeries, and that he has a long history of exactly this kind of fraud across multiple territories." Holloway shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. These are lies, desperate attempts to—" "Mr. Holloway, sit down." Judge Harrison's voice was sharp. "Mr. Bennett, what evidence are you referring to?" "First, Your Honor, bank records from Helena, proving that the institution Mr. Holloway claims issued the original loan went out of business 5 years before the supposed debt was created." Bennett handed over the documents that had arrived on the morning train. "Second, testimony from Mrs. Margaret Sullivan of Denver, whose husband was victimized by Mr. Ed Holloway using identical methods." Margaret stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. My husband Thomas owned 300 acres in Colorado. Marcus Holloway wanted them. When Thomas wouldn't sell, Holloway produced fake debt documents, bribed local officials, and stole everything we had. Thomas hanged himself in our barn 6 months later. The courtroom erupted. Judge Harrison banged his gavel repeatedly, calling for order. Mrs. Sullivan, these are serious accusations. I have proof, Your Honor. 15 years of letters, documents, and sworn statements from 7 other families Holloway has destroyed. She opened her satchel and began pulling out papers. I have bank records showing payments to corrupt officials. I have testimony from a former employee who forged documents on Holloway's orders. I have everything. Holloway's face had gone white. His lawyers were whispering frantically, gathering papers, preparing to flee. Your Honor, one of them said, we need a postponement to examine this new evidence. You need nothing of the sort. Nate Cole stepped forward, his badge gleaming. Marcus Holloway, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Additional charges will be filed pending investigation. The courtroom exploded again. Holloway tried to run, but Nate's deputies were faster, grabbing him before he could reach the door. As they dragged him past, Jacob Holloway's mask finally cracked. This isn't over, he snarled. I have friends, connections. You can't. I can, Jacob said quietly. And I did. Holloway was still shouting as they hauled him away. Jacob watched him go, feeling something release in his chest. The weight he'd been carrying for months, the fear, the uncertainty, it was lifting. Clara squeezed his hand. It's done. Almost. Jacob turned to Margaret Sullivan. Thank you. I don't know how to repay what you've done. You don't owe me anything. Margaret's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. You stopped him. After 15 years, you stopped him. That's payment enough. The hearing concluded quickly after that. Judge Harrison dismissed Holloway's claim entirely, declared Jacob's land free and clear, and issued a formal apology for the court's time being wasted. But the day wasn't over. As Jacob stepped out of the courthouse, he found himself facing a crowd. The whole town, it seemed, had gathered on the steps. For a moment, his old instincts kicked in, the fear of judgment, the expectation of rejection. Then Martha Chen started clapping. One person at first, then another, then a dozen, then everyone. Applause rolled through the crowd like thunder, and with it came shouts of congratulations, of support, of welcome. You did it, Callahan. Showed that city snake what for. 3 cheers for Jacob and Lily. Jacob stood frozen, overwhelmed by something he hadn't felt in years. Acceptance. Belonging. A community that had tested him, doubted him, and finally fully embraced him. Clara appeared at his side, Lily in her arms. The baby was awake, looking around at all the noise with wide eyes. They're cheering for you, Clara said softly. They're cheering for us. Jacob took Lily from her, holding his daughter up so the crowd could see. All of us. The cheers grew louder. Someone started singing an old victory song from the war, and others joined in. Jacob stood on those courthouse steps, his daughter in his arms, his love at his side, and let himself feel something he'd forgotten existed. Joy. Pure, unguarded, terrifying joy. That night, after everything had quieted down, Jacob sat on his porch with Clara beside him and Lily asleep in the cabin behind them. The stars were out bright and endless, and the world felt larger than it had in years. What happens now? Clara asked. Now we live. We raise our daughter. We build a life. Jacob took her hand. We get married if you'll have me. Clara went still. Jacob. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months. But I've wasted too much time being afraid, Clara. I don't want to waste any more. He turned to face her. I love you. I want to spend whatever time I have left loving you. Will you marry me? Clara's answer was to lean in and kiss him long and deep and full of promise. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes, Jacob Callahan. I'll marry you. In the cabin, Lily stirred and made a small happy sound as if even in sleep, she knew something wonderful had happened. Jacob held Clara close and watched the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere out there, Sarah and William were at peace. Annabelle was at peace. All the ghosts of his past had finally settled. And Jacob Callahan, the cursed man, who'd sworn never to love again, had found his way home at last. The wedding was set for the first Sunday in April. Jacob had wanted something small, just family and close friends. But Clara laughed and told him that wasn't how things worked in a town that had watched their story unfold from the beginning. "They've invested in us," she said, adjusting his collar on the morning of the ceremony. "They've watched you go from the cursed hermit to the father who rode through blizzards for his daughter. They want to celebrate." "I don't need celebrating." "Maybe not, but Lily does." Clara's eyes softened. "She's going to grow up in this town, Jacob. She's going to need these people. Let them be part of this." So the whole town came. The church was packed, every pew filled, people standing along the walls and spilling out onto the steps. Reverend Whitmore, humbled by the Holloway affair and genuinely repentant, performed the ceremony with quiet dignity. Jacob stood at the altar in a suit that felt too tight, watching Clara walk toward him on Nate Cole's arm, and forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful. Not in the way of young girls or society ladies, but in the way of strong women who had survived loss and chosen to love again. Her dress was simple cream cotton, her hair pinned with wildflowers, her eyes bright with tears and joy. "You clean up nice, Callahan," she whispered when she reached him. "You're one to talk." Lily sat in Josephine's lap in the front row, babbling happily, unaware that her world was changing. Eleanor had wanted desperately to attend, but the journey from Helena had weakened her too much. She was resting at the boarding house, waiting for them to bring the celebration to her. The vows were simple, traditional. But when Jacob spoke, his voice cracked with emotion he couldn't hide. "I spent 12 years believing I'd never love again. Believing I wasn't capable of it. That the part of me that could feel had died with my wife and son." He held Clara's hands tighter. "Then a baby arrived on Christmas morning, and a widow showed up to teach me how to care for her. And somewhere in those sleepless nights and desperate days, I learned that love isn't something you run out of. It's something that grows. The more you give, the more you have." Clara was crying openly now. Half the congregation was crying with her. "I don't have much to offer you, Clara Morrison. A ranch that needs work. A daughter who'll keep us up nights for years to come. A man who's still learning how to open up, how to trust, how to be the husband you deserve." Jacob lifted her hands to his lips. "But I promise you this, I will show up. Every day, every night, every moment that matters. I will choose you, choose us, choose this family we're building, for as long as I live." Clara's voice was thick with tears when she spoke. "I spent 5 years punishing myself for things I couldn't change. Hiding in my grief, pushing away anyone who might make me feel again. Then you walked into my kitchen with a baby you'd known for 3 days, terrified and exhausted, and so determined to do right by her, and I remembered what courage looked like." She reached up and touched his scarred cheek. "You're not broken, Jacob Callahan. You're not cursed. You're the bravest man I've ever known, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." Reverend Whitmore pronounced them man and wife, and when Jacob kissed Clara, the church erupted in cheers. Lily clapped her tiny hands, mimicking the adults around her, and the sound of her laughter rose above everything else. They were married, they were family, they were home. The reception spilled out of the church and into the town square where tables had been set up and food brought from every kitchen in Oak Ridge. Jacob shook hands until his arm ached. Accepted congratulations until his voice went hoarse, and watched Clara dance with anyone who asked while Lily was passed from adoring arms to adoring arms. "You did good, Jake." Nate appeared at his side, 2 glasses of whiskey in hand. "Real good." "Couldn't have done it without you." "Sure you could have. You're the stubbornest man I've ever known." Nate handed him a glass. "But I'm glad I was here to see it." They drank in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold. What happened with Holloway? Jacob asked. Territorial court indicted him on 12 counts of fraud. More charges coming from Colorado and Kansas. He'll be in prison for the rest of his life if the courts have anything to say about it. Nate's jaw tightened. Margaret Sullivan is testifying at every hearing. Says she'll follow him through hell if that's what it takes. She deserves justice. She'll get it, thanks to you. Jacob shook his head. Thanks to her, I just gave her a chance. You gave a lot of people a chance, Jake, including yourself. Nate clapped him on the shoulder. Now go dance with your wife before someone steals her. Jacob found Clara at the edge of the square, catching her breath between songs. Her hair had come loose from its pins, wildflowers scattered across her shoulders, and she had never looked more beautiful. Mrs. Callahan, he said, offering his hand. Clara's smile could have lit up the territory. Mr. Callahan. They danced slowly, despite the faster music, holding each other close and letting the world fade away. For a few minutes there was no town watching, no battles won, no ghosts laid to rest. Just the two of them moving together like they'd been doing it for years. I love you, Clara murmured against his chest. I love you too. Jacob pressed a kiss to her hair. Think we can sneak away? Not a chance. Martha Chen would hunt us down. Worth a shot. Clara laughed, that bright sound he'd come to treasure. We have the rest of our lives, Jacob. Tonight we celebrate with our family. Our family. The words settled into his heart like seeds taking root. Yeah, he said. We do. Eleanor Harrington died 3 weeks after the wedding. She'd held on longer than the doctors expected, sustained by sheer will and the chance to see her granddaughter happy. Josephine had stayed in Oak Ridge the whole time, splitting her days between the boarding house and Jacob's cabin, learning to be the aunt she'd promised to become. When the end came, it was peaceful. Eleanor had spent the afternoon holding Lily, singing old lullabies, telling stories about Annabelle as a child. She'd fallen asleep with her granddaughter in her arms and simply never woken up. Josephine found them like that, Lily sleeping peacefully against her grandmother's still chest, unaware that she'd just lost someone who loved her deeply. She's smiling, Josephine whispered when Jacob and Clara arrived. Look at her face. She's smiling. Eleanor's expression was serene. All pain erased, all regret finally released. She'd died the way she'd wanted to, holding the last piece of her beloved Annabelle, surrounded by the family she'd helped create. The funeral was held in Helena at the Harrington family church. Jacob hadn't wanted to go, hadn't wanted to face Eleanor's husband, the man who'd thrown out his pregnant daughter and set everything in motion, but Clara insisted. This is about closure, she said. For Lily, for Josephine, for you. I don't need closure with Henry Harrington. Maybe not, but Josephine does, and she needs us there when she faces him. So they went. The service was elaborate and expensive, exactly the kind of thing Eleanor had probably hated. Henry Harrington sat in the front pew, his face carved from stone, refusing to acknowledge the rancher and his family seated near the back. But after the service, when the mourners gathered at the Harrington mansion, everything changed. Josephine stood up in front of the assembled guests, society people, business partners, politicians, and began to speak. My mother spent the last weeks of her life in a small town in Wyoming, not in this mansion, not surrounded by luxury and servants. She spent them holding her granddaughter, watching her sleep, singing her songs. Josephine's voice was steady, but her eyes blazed. She died happy for the first time in years. And the people who made that possible are here today. She turned and gestured toward Jacob and Clara. Jacob Callahan found my sister's baby abandoned in his barn on Christmas morning. He could have handed her off to an orphanage. He could have let the town take her. Instead, he fought for her. He nearly died for her. He loved her when no one else would. The room had gone silent. Henry Harrington's face was turning red. My mother's last wish was that Lily know both her families. The Callahans who chose her and the Harringtons she was born to. Josephine's voice hardened. And that means acknowledging the truth. This family failed Annabelle. We failed her when she needed us most. Jacob Callahan succeeded where we fell short. Josephine, Henry Harrington started. I'm not finished, Father. Josephine's tone could have cut glass. I'm leaving Helena. I'm moving to Wyoming near Jacob and Clara and Lily. I'm going to be part of my niece's life the way I should have been part of my sister's. I forbid it. You can't forbid anything anymore. Josephine straightened her spine. I have my inheritance from Mother. I have my own money, my own choices, my own life. And I choose them. She crossed the room and stood beside Jacob, Clara, and Lily. The message was clear. This was her family now. Henry Harrington looked at his daughter, at the granddaughter he'd never acknowledged, at the rancher who'd saved what he'd thrown away. For a long moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or shame. Then his face closed off again. Do what you want, he said coldly. You're no daughter of mine. Josephine didn't flinch. I stopped being your daughter the day you threw out Annabelle. I just didn't know it yet. She turned and walked out, and Jacob and Clara followed with Lily in their arms. Behind them, the Harrington mansion, with all its wealth and emptiness, faded into irrelevance. They had everything that mattered. Spring turned to summer, and Lily took her first steps. Jacob was in the garden when it happened, pulling weeds from the vegetable patch Clara had planted when he heard her shriek of joy from the porch. Jacob! Jacob, come quick! He ran heart-pounding, expecting disaster. Instead, he found Clara on her knees, arms outstretched, tears streaming down her face as Lily tottered toward her on unsteady legs. She's walking! Clara gasped. Jacob! She's walking! Lily made it 3 steps before tumbling into Clara's arms, giggling like it was the best game in the world. Jacob dropped to his knees beside them, gathering them both close, laughing and crying at the same time. That's my girl, he managed. That's my brave girl. Lily reached up and patted his face. Da, she said. Jacob froze. Da. Lily repeated, more insistent. Da-da. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth, fresh tears spilling over. Her first word. Jacob, her first word is, Daddy. Jacob's voice broke. She called me Daddy. He'd heard the word before from William a lifetime ago, had thought he'd never hear it again. But here it was, falling from Lily's lips like the most natural thing in the world. Da-da, Lily said again, satisfied with herself. Da-da-da. Jacob pulled her into his arms and held her against his chest, feeling her small heart beat against his, and let the tears come. All the grief he'd carried, all the loss, all the years of believing he'd never be a father again, it dissolved in that moment, washed away by a baby's voice and a single word. Daddy. He was someone's daddy again. The adoption hearing was held in August, exactly 8 months after Jacob had found Lily in his barn. Judge Harrison presided again, but this time the courtroom felt different, friendly, supportive. The same people who'd once questioned Jacob's fitness to raise a child now packed the gallery ready to celebrate. Jacob and Clara Callahan, the judge began. You're petitioning to legally adopt the minor child Lily, whose biological mother, Annabelle Harrington, is deceased. Yes, Your Honor. I've reviewed the documentation, the reports from the community, the statements from family members, including Miss Josephine Harrington, who supports this adoption fully. Judge Harrison looked up. I've also reviewed your history, Mr. Callahan, the past 8 months. The way you've cared for this child, fought for her, built a stable home with Mrs. Callahan. She's my daughter, Your Honor, has been since Christmas morning. I know. Judge Harrison smiled. And it's my pleasure to make it official. He signed the papers with a flourish. By the power vested in me by the Wyoming Territory, I hereby declare Lily Callahan, the legal daughter of Jacob and Clara Callahan, with all the rights and responsibilities thereof. He set down his pen. Congratulations. She's yours. The courtroom erupted in applause. Clara threw her arms around Jacob, laughing and crying. Josephine lifted Lily above her head, making the baby shriek with delight. Nate pounded Jacob on the back so hard he nearly fell over. "How does it feel?" Clara asked, her face glowing. "Like coming home," Jacob said. "Like finally coming home." That evening, Jacob carried Lily up the hill behind the cabin. Clara walked beside him, her hand in his, as they made their way to the two graves that had stood alone for so long. Sarah Callahan, William Callahan, beloved wife, beloved son, together forever. Jacob knelt in the grass, settling Lily on his knee so she faced the headstones. "Sarah William, this is Lily, your sister in a way. The daughter I never expected, the second chance I didn't think I deserved." His voice was thick but steady. "I want you to know I haven't forgotten you. I'll never forget you. But I've learned something these past months. Love isn't finite. Loving Lily doesn't mean loving you less. It means carrying you with me while I build something new." Clara knelt beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I'm happy, Sarah. For the first time in 12 years, I'm happy. I've got a daughter who calls me daddy, and a wife who makes me believe in tomorrow, and a family that chose each other." Jacob touched the headstone, his fingers tracing Sarah's name. "I think you'd like Clara. I think you'd love Lily. And I hope you're at peace now. Because I finally am." Lily reached toward the headstone, babbling her baby talk as if she was having her own conversation with the spirits there. Maybe she was. Maybe some connections ran deeper than the living understood. "We should head back," Clara said softly. "Josephine's making dinner, and you know how that goes." Jacob laughed despite himself. Josephine's cooking had become a family joke, enthusiastic but disastrous. "We should probably have a backup plan." "Already done. Martha Chen dropped off a casserole." "Smart woman." They stood together, the three of them, looking down at the graves that had once represented everything Jacob had lost. But now, standing there with his wife and daughter, he saw something different. Not endings, beginnings, the past flowing into the present, grief transformed into gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, "for loving me, for giving me William, for everything." The wind stirred gentle and warm, and Jacob could have sworn he felt something like an answer, a blessing, a release. He turned and walked down the hill, his family beside him, leaving the past where it belonged, and carrying its lessons into the future. Josephine's dinner was predictably a catastrophe. "I followed the recipe exactly," she insisted, poking at something that might once have been chicken. "I don't understand what went wrong." "You put the pan in before the oven was hot," Clara said, trying not to laugh. "And I think you mistook salt for sugar. They're both white." Jacob rescued Martha's casserole from the warming oven and served it while Josephine sulked dramatically. Lily, in her high chair, banged her spoon against the tray and demanded attention. "Da da da da." "I'm right here, little one." Jacob handed her a piece of soft bread. "Eat your dinner." "She's got you wrapped around her finger," Josephine observed. "She's had me wrapped around her finger since Christmas morning." "And he's useless about it," Clara added. "Completely useless. She cries, he comes running. She smiles, he melts into a puddle." "As it should be," Josephine said. "She's perfect, and she knows it." They ate together in the warm kitchen, 3 adults and 1 baby, a family that had no business existing, and yet somehow did. Josephine had moved into a small house at the edge of town, close enough to visit daily, far enough to maintain independence. She'd taken over managing the general store after the old owner retired, surprising everyone, including herself, with her business sense. "I had a letter from Father today," Josephine said quietly near the end of the meal. The table went still. "What did he want?" "To inform me that I've been officially removed from the family trust. I'm no longer a Harrington heir." Josephine's voice was matter-of-fact, but Jacob saw the pain underneath. "He's also threatened to contest Lily's adoption claim she should be raised by proper family." "Can he do that?" "He can try. His lawyers say he has no case, I'm her next of kin, and I've signed off on the adoption. But father has money and spite in equal measure." Clara reached across the table and took Josephine's hand. "Whatever happens, we face it together. Your family, Josie. That means something." "Does it?" "It means everything," Jacob said firmly. "Your father can send all the lawyers he wants. We've beaten worse. And we'll keep beating whatever comes because that's what families do." Josephine's eyes glistened. "I never had this. Growing up in that house with all that money and all those expectations, I never had people who would fight for me." "You have them now." Jacob lifted his glass. "To family, the one you're born into and the one you choose." "To family," Clara echoed. "To family," Josephine whispered. Lily banged her spoon again, adding her own contribution to the toast, and they all laughed. Later that night, after Josephine had gone home and Lily was sleeping peacefully in her crib, Jacob and Clara sat on the porch watching stars emerge. "1 year," Clara said softly. "Almost exactly 1 year since you found her. Feels like longer. Feels like she's always been here." "She has. In some way, she was always meant to be yours." Jacob thought about that. About Christmas morning and the desperate note and the choice he'd made in that frozen barn. About everything that had followed the sleepless nights, the battles fought, the love that had grown from impossible soil. "I used to think I was cursed," he said, "that God had marked me for suffering and there was nothing I could do about it. Losing Sarah, losing William, it confirmed everything I believed about myself. And now I think maybe suffering is just part of the story. Not the whole thing, not the ending." He took Clara's hand. "I think maybe we're meant to break so we can learn how to heal, meant to lose so we can learn how to find, meant to fall so we can learn how to rise." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's beautiful, Jacob." "It's true. At least it's true for me." He looked up at the stars, at the vast Wyoming sky that had witnessed his worst moments and his best. "Lily didn't save me because she needed saving. She saved me because I needed her. Needed something to fight for, something to love, something to remind me that life goes on even when we think it can't. And me." Jacob turned to face his wife, this woman who had walked into his brokenness and refused to leave. "You taught me that I could choose. That love isn't something that happens to us. It's something we decide every day, over and over. You decided to help me when you had no reason to. Decided to stand beside me when the whole town thought I was crazy. Decided to love me when I couldn't love myself." Clara's eyes were bright with tears. "I choose you," Jacob said. "Every morning when I wake up, every night when I fall asleep, every moment in between, I choose you, Clara Callahan. And I'll keep choosing you until the day I die." She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I choose you too," she whispered. "Always." From inside the cabin, a small cry rose, Lily awake and demanding attention. Jacob and Clara exchanged looks and laughed. "I'll get her," Clara said. "We'll both get her." They went inside together into the warm cabin that had once been so empty and was now so full. Jacob lifted Lily from her crib, feeling her small body settle against his chest, and marveled at how natural it felt. How right. "Dada," Lily murmured sleepily, her eyes already drifting closed again. "I'm here," Jacob whispered. "Daddy's here. Daddy's always going to be here." He held her while she fell back to sleep. Clara beside him, the fire crackling low, the world outside quiet and peaceful. In this moment, there was no past to mourn and no future to fear. There was only now, only love, only the family he'd found when he'd stopped looking. 12 years ago, Jacob Callahan had buried his heart in the frozen ground beside his wife and son. But hearts, he'd learned, were stubborn things. They waited in the dark. They survived the cold. And when spring finally came, they found their way back to the light. Clara touched his arm. "Penny for your thoughts." Jacob smiled down at his sleeping daughter, at his beautiful wife, at the life he'd built from ashes and hope. Just thinking about how lucky I am. Lucky? Clara raised an eyebrow. You've been through hell and back. I know. And I'd do it all again. He kissed Lily's forehead, then Clara's lips. Every bit of pain, every year of loneliness, every moment of doubt. Because it led me here, to you, to her, to this. Clara smiled that smile he'd spend the rest of his life trying to deserve. Come to bed, Jacob. Tomorrow's another day. Best words I've heard all night. He laid Lily in her crib, tucked the blanket around her tiny body, and followed his wife to the bedroom they shared. Outside, the Wyoming wind whispered through the pines. Inside, a family slept in peace. On Christmas morning, Jacob Callahan had found a baby in his barn with a note that said, "Please love her." He'd kept that promise, and in keeping it, he had found something he never expected. He'd found his way home,